Welcome to the People's Guild.
Each week we explore the Splinterlands universe with guests from all across the mythical land of Praetoria.
Join us on our journey as we discuss the evolution of the game, the strategy, the lore, and the exciting path that lies ahead.
To support the People's Guild, make sure you subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts, and also check us out on PeakD, YouTube, and Twitter.
Send your questions, suggestions, and epic battles in our comments through Twitter or email at thepeoplesguildspl@gmail.com. We'll feature the best in our episodes and maybe airdrop you some prizes.
Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the show.
Welcome back to the People's Guild. Another week, another episode. This week we got a guest we've been trying to wrangle for a couple of months. We kind of put it on the back burner for in hopes for the 1.5 release. And would you look at that? We've had 1.5. We've had, as of recording this, the third piece of the 2.0 whitepaper trickle has just made airwaves. So lots to talk about. We got a man with more nicknames than I care to count. I think the latest one is Magister for his participation in the Secret of Praetoria. We got MattClarke. Before we bring you on though, Matt, I quickly want to hear from Hep about his shopping sprees on the Aqualis marketplace and how that's been going with all the things Rebellion.
Yeah, it's been going good. Been buying cards. They kind of didn't have I think they just saw a message the other day that they got the functionality to get the images up, but you had to kind of just go by the name. The images just weren't loading, but yeah, it's been great. I've been getting some Rebellion cards there, using the DEC I've been getting back in return to buy ECR, and I've finally clawed my way out of Silver 1, and then kind of busted through Gold 3 and Gold 2 very quickly in a day, and after my days of clawing at Silver 1. So it was rough getting out of there, but we're back up in Modern into Gold 1. So yeah, man, thanks to Aqualis for being able to get that extra energy that I needed to get me out of there.
Yeah, what is it, 2.8% back immediately?
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I mean, you spend just dropping like $50-$100, able to kind of get enough ECR to top off for a day.
Nice. No, good user testimony there, Hep. All right, MattClarke. Well, what's up, dude? What's the preferred nickname down in Adelaide at the moment, man? How do we properly introduce you?
Oh no, I think you did a reasonably good job. We've had 3 days of thunderstorms down here, so it's been pretty full on, considering it's summer now. We're a week or so into summer, and yeah, it's been ridiculous. So our neighbour across the street lost his fence the other day. 3 or 4 panels of that gone, and it's a good quality fence. So it's been pretty brutal here. But no, as far as Splinterlands goes, it's been a great time. I've been slowly, very slowly, getting into setting up my land plots. I think I only have 11 at the moment that are up and running, all in Region 36. So Region 37 is just sat there completely unexplored. It's obviously I've done the surveys, but I've done no development on it at all. I got 70,000 SPS just sitting there waiting until I feel like SPS has sort of hit a local spike. And then when I can get a decent amount of DEC for it, then I'll start at least burning that to generate some DEC and use that to really stake that into 36 and really build up on that and get some real momentum and inertia going there, and then easy to 37 and get some of those more some of the better legendary, magical, epic plots there going. My plan was always to take gains and grow with the gains, but I'm just so reluctant to burn SPS at this price. I just feel like there's a bit more room to hit that 5-6 cent mark, and I always like to be the patient guy who just waits a little bit longer, and I don't mind missing that early mover advantage if it means that in the long term I'm going to get more momentum out of doing that.
Sure. What a game plan, man. Being the patient one, Matt, you've been waiting for gosh, years for this land play, and it's finally here, and holy moly, man. So I recently you and the family just went on vacation. I think you were talking about that with the 101 guys. So shout out to your co-hosts, great co-hosts, Boba Fett and Geo. Before we jump Splinterland stuff, did you guys have a nice holiday up on, did you guys do Sunshine Coast? Is that right?
Yeah, we did Sunshine Coast. So we went out to, there's an island out there, Tangalooma Resort. We went to Morton Island, I think it is, a big, very big sand island, sort of an hour and a half ferry ride across the ocean from Brisbane. And that was really, really good. They've sunk 12 shipwrecks there over the last 50 years, deliberately scuttled the ships. Just in the right spot to be a good dive spot. So my wife in particular really, really enjoyed it. She said it was the highlight of the trip. But we did waterfall walks in the sort of tropical Sunshine Coast, and we did a couple of water parks. Australia Zoo, Steve Irwin's zoo. We saw his son Robert doing the waving the chickens around and taunting the crocodiles. And I remember when he was when Robert was just a baby in nappies, and Steve got in all sorts of trouble with the media for taking him out there with the crocodiles and waving
his baby in front of the crocs.
No, so here's that baby now. He's young Robert, and so it's good. I wasn't sure if we'd see any of the actual Irwin royalty. That's as close as you get to royalty in Australia. I know officially we're still part of the Commonwealth, but nobody cares about the Windsors. It's the Irwins that we're all about. So it was good to see him, and it was a pretty fantastic trip. All three of the kids had tangles with leeches, we're from a fairly temperate climate, so it was all a big new learning experience for us. But scrubbing the bright red blood out of the floor, out of the car mats before I returned the car to the rental place, so that I didn't have to worry about a biohazard cleanup fee or anything like that. That was
or any legal inquisitions from the local police department.
Exactly. Yeah, we sort of right out where it's quite scrubby bushland. There's some waterfalls, and we went for a dip in a I guess the pond at the base of the waterfall, and you're out in the wild. Things are going to happen. We got back to the car, and both of my lads had a leech between two toes, and so they just let them stay there until they'd had their fill, better than pulling them off. But one of them was fine, no blood at all, and the other one really bled quite copiously. So that's after I had a tick on myself. I didn't realise even what it was until I pulled it off and saw it in the bathroom sink. It's just been sat there on my chest. So it's been quite a tangle with nature. I'm glad we're back, but it was a really great trip.
Man, yeah, I'm really used to ticks, like around where I live and where I grew up. But leeches, that seems like a whole different thing. Like, how big are they, or is it kind of similar to a tick, or what's? Yeah, no, I can't. I'm like always just like kind of, not that I'm like scared of them, but anything I'm know of leeches is just like stuff you see in the movies, and they're like monstrous things that feel like.
Yeah, well, they're about the size of, I guess, a large slug, and they start quite skinny, but once they gorge themselves on blood, they really expand out. So our daughter Evelyn got done sort of 2 days in, and then the boys were a couple of days after that. It's funny because the only times I've tangled with leeches have been on the East Coast, and 5 years ago, when Splinterlands had really only just got started, the Hive Australia guys got together in Katoomba at Bear One's house. She's been around for a very, very long time. She runs the Drop Bears Guild.
Oh, she was just on the 101 crew Century Mark episode, right?
So I think it was Sarah.
Oh, yeah, different girl.
Yeah, that was Sarah. Yeah, Bling It Sarah. She's in the Drop Bears as well. But no, Bear One is she's lovely. She put on a Christmas show in 2018. So the Hive guys all got together there, and I flew over for that. And Shydon, who's one of the Adelaide guys, he got a leech on his hand and on her balcony, on her porch in the Blue Mountains. So I ended up burning that off with a cigarette lighter. So they've been, my only tangles with leeches have been on the East Coast. So I'm just going to stay in Adelaide from now on, I think, where it's safe.
That does it, huh? Blood-sucking arachnids and leeches enough to keep MattClarke away, huh?
Yeah, we had a great trip. It's the kind of thing that, you know, if you can afford to do it every now and then, and you know the kids are only young once, they make those memories and they carry them along with them. So I was really glad we were able to do it.
Awesome. And I heard you mention something along the lines of it's the third or fourth time that you guys have tried to make this extended excursion, but thanks to COVID and restrictions and
Yeah.
lockdowns and
Oh yeah, I'm so glad to have this holiday done. The missus, bless her heart, she booked a South Pacific cruise for the whole family to, I guess, to reenact our honeymoon 15 years ago. And we're really champing at the bit, and the kids are all love it. And I got boys that are all into boats and the like. So we planned that, and then the overreaction to COVID started, or the silliness as I called it. So the cruise got cancelled, and then she said, "Oh, should we rebook for 6 months or 12?" And I said, "Oh, we'll give it 12 just in case it lasts a ridiculously long time." And of course, the second cruise 12 months later got cancelled. So we said, "Well, instead of going international, we'll just book to go to Queensland." Then, of course, when we did that, they went and closed all the state borders, even internally within Australia. So, yeah, it was literally our fourth attempt to have this holiday. We transferred that same sort of sum of money across from each cancellation to the next, and yeah, it was unbelievable. So I'm glad most of it's behind us now, and we might save up a couple of years and then actually go and do a cruise.
no leeches on a cruise boat.
Hopefully not.
That's the hope. Although on our honeymoon, by pure coincidence, my wife's cousin and her boyfriend were booked on the same cruise, and out on one of the beach adventures, a coconut hit him on the head, fell out of a tree and hit him on the head. Really, really dazed him. He was fine long term, but it's pretty funny.
Yeah, glad that's something to laugh about. Coconuts falling from a tree. That sounds incredibly painful and potentially lethal.
Yeah, he had a hard noggin. He shook it off.
Yeah. Cool. All right, man. Well, let's turn the proverbial cruise ship back towards Praetoria. Yeah, like we said, you've been waiting for, it's been a long time coming for Matt Two Castles Clarke to officially have that Two Castle title. And it's here, it's running. What's let's just hear kind of initial reactions. How are things going? I know you mentioned things are going a little bit slowly, just kind of taking the pace and seeing how things pan out. But more so, I'm interested in general impression, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I like it. I like that it's run quite smoothly. There's been a few times where I've thought, I wonder how I can do this, but I've been able to navigate to it fairly easily and then find it again next time. So from a user interface perspective, I think there's a lot that they've done that, you might immediately think, oh, this doesn't make sense, but then they're also future-proofing it where, where we're allowing for a much more complex and convoluted landscape down the track, and you sort of start how you want to continue. So rather than redesigning UI down the road, I think they've said, well, this is what we want to end up with, so let's start there. So yeah, there's a lot going on. It can be busy, but you click around a few times and you work out which way's up. I think for me the big one has been because I started. Well, I took over from the last guy, the guild, the Roaring Twenties, and we have more than 5% of Praetoria represented by guild members. So we've got some heavy hitters like Cryptomancer, Michael B, and Wacko Jacko, and myself. So we have quite a lot of land all up, mostly in BRL in the Broken Lands. But we also went in on a pool. Dave McCoy, who's a fantastic man to deal with, and I've got a lot of time for him. He did a group buy in Region 29, and we had a bit of leftover DEC because at the time there were only two guild buildings available. This is before the store and the arena and the barracks and the store were available. So I took that DEC and bought 30 plots in Dave's guild in his land pool, and we ended up just on behalf of the guild. I figured, well, we'll just use that land for on behalf of the guild. And we ended up drawing a castle in there. Holazor did it on his stream and happened to flip a castle, the castle in Region 29, which is fantastic. But because I'm the guild leader, that's obviously fallen to me to manage that. And that's, I guess, my own stuff. I sort of think, well, if I miss an opportunity or if I mismanage things or whatever, I'm very conscious of wanting to continue to make sure in my own mind that this is a game. I've seen some good men burn out over the years. because they're constantly obsessing over optimizing, and I think they're the ones who get impatient. They're the ones who really deal with it like it's a job, and they just look forward to retiring. Whereas I've kind of always tried to make sure that I just see it as a game, and just try to enjoy it and have fun. And if I miss opportunities, I miss them. But because the guild owns the castle, and I'm sort of dealing with it as a representative of the guild, that's been a real focus for me, is making sure that I'm getting the best benefit out of that. So the castle in Region 29 is all set up with some cards sort of donated, well, loaned on loan from various different guild members, and over time we'll take some income from that and build up the other 29 plots that we bought, and also slowly over time return those cards back to their original guild member owners as we buy cards to replace them. So that's been a big focus for me as well, just trying to be a good steward of that responsibility for the sake of everyone. The Roaring Twenties has always had the catchphrase "serious investors, casual gamers." And so we're never at the top of the leaderboards, but we also recognise that a game like this, there's going to be interplay, right? There's going to be a good reason that you're going to want, as a landholder, you're going to want to have a seat in a high-level guild. You're going to want to have gladiators. You're going to want to have merits and access to the discounts that come with being in the guild. So we've sort of always been about getting there, competing at a level that's still fun for us, and still very lightly managed. So we'll often limp into a brawl, a couple of frays light, just because somebody's on holidays and somebody else doesn't feel like it this week. Our only rule is that if you do put your hand up to play a fray, then you really do need to play it. Otherwise, you could be freezing somebody else out. But we try to keep the pressure off and remember that it is just a game. And that as investors, we really just want to have a guild that's high level, for when there's interplay between guilds and land, however that looks. So I feel like we're reasonably well positioned there. And I keep reflecting on how, if you've got my own two castles are very much limited by the activity going on those regions. And so far, that's not much. But the Roaring Twenties castle is doing great, because there's a lot of people own plots in Region 29, and they're building them. They're constructing, and they're staking dark energy crystals, and they're doing everything they can to build up their plots. And so I keep reflecting over time, a chunk from each one of 999 productive plots, that's bound to be good. I really, looking at the price of castles on the market, and I kind of think they're undervalued at the moment.
Yeah, I just wanted, you said, initially said that, you try to keep it so a little more casual, and so you don't end up feeling like it's a job. But with all the land you have to manage, I was wondering, how did it go initially getting what you had set up? How long did that kind of take you? Did it feel tedious, kind of setting up each plot, or did you find that the interface was good enough that it all ran pretty smoothly for you?
Yeah, no, the interface is fine. Usually, I'll set up a new plot every few days. At the moment, I've sort of got the bit of income from rentals, renting cards that I don't yet have on land. So every few days, I'll have enough to sort of get another plot up and running, another 50,000 dark energy crystals. I'll start by just staking it to the region, and then I know that I've got one more plot I can develop, and then I just cruise through the list. I'm still in my epics at the moment, epic magical and epic occupied. So I'll just grab another one of those. It's easy enough to select cards because they're all sort of there in the list with the, ranked from highest PP to lowest. So I just grab a core. My Roonies are all well established on different plots now. I only have 4 Rooney, so one of them's gold. Don't know if there's any advantage to gold Rooney or if there will be in the future, but I was pretty stoked when I pulled him. So it probably take me 5 minutes to set up another plot. I'll usually not burn time crystals because most of the plots I'm doing are quite high end, and it would be 1,500 or 1,200 time crystals to speed up production. I'd rather just wait 5 or 6 days or whatever it turns out to be. So I've usually got a couple of lots under construction and a couple of new ones coming online, and I just take it casual and easy. There's no reason to sort of pull your hair out, and I think immediately set up your best 100 plots on day one. I think again that's a great way to get all upset and angry. And I was never one to stack the dark energy crystals. I always thought I'd rather have the SPS there, get the staking rewards for it, and then I think the guys that really get upset are the ones who want to be very, very prepared. And then when there's a delay where suddenly land's been put back, was it 2 weeks? There was that last minute delay where Farpatrad was saying, "Oh yeah, we're good to go," and then Yabba was saying, "Oh yeah, not." And within a few hours, it went from "we're ready" to actually it's still a couple of weeks away. And I think if you got your DEC, you're sitting there and you sold all your cards you were renting to turn them into DEC. So that you were ready to go on day one, and you're champing at the bit, and you've got all that nervous energy, and then it's been put off for 2 weeks, then that's a problem. Whereas I don't get impatient because I'm generally not over prepared for things, and so when they are delayed, I think, well, that's fine. We'll just leave those rental cards on the market like they were, and I'll leave the SPS staked and getting me staking rewards. And I think again, optimization is great if you love it, but if you don't love it, it will burn you out. And then, I know several guys who would have done great out of this game in the last 3 years, but they burnt out 6 months in and left. So I think whatever gives you that longevity, you've got to know yourself, know your preferences, know your own mindset, and then play into that so that you don't burn yourself out.
So are all the flesh golems put to work now, or are they still have a fair amount of them on the rental market?
No, I still have a few on the rental market. I've got a lot of I went mad on Pellicle Conjurers for a while, so I've got I think like 30 of those maxed out at gold, in gold foil, sorry. And so they'll be the next ones to move across. I've still got, I think, probably 20 flesh columns that are maxed out, ready to go on land. I've got collections over the years. I've sort of thought I'm gonna focus on this card, and I'm gonna focus on and I'll just stack 10 or 20 of them at max level and forget about them and just leave them on the rental market. So I kind of I'm some of the time I'm scrolling down through the list, go, oh yeah, I remember these guys. I forgot entirely that I was obsessed with them 3 years ago, and now here they are ready to work my land. So no, it's been good.
Well, there's definitely a lot more than meets the eye on your philosophy to manning the land. It sounds like you talked kind of at length about being ready for retirement and going full time to just kind of land manager, and you've kind of moseyed your way into it and taking your time. And yeah, I mean, you can hear by the tone of your voice and the way you just kind of approach the game. It's still a game. It's still fun. And that's, there's a lot to that, considering you've been around since early days, and you've seen the highest of the highs. And, I don't know where the lowest of the lows were, but you've been around for those too. And you don't got a chip on your shoulder. You're just enjoying the farmer life, man. It's great to hear.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, look, I've certainly got that philosophical belief, but ultimately, I don't just believe it's a good project. I'm also big enough in it that if Splinterlands continues to grow and innovate and be the leader in this space, and if people continue to be drawn to it and attracted to it, and we get a few big names and then pick up some more momentum, and maybe SPS goes on a bit of a tear and that gets some attention, and we get an influx of players, and then maybe someone, Waka Flameblade might decide to Waka Flocka, whatever his name is, he might say, hey, look, I'm gonna put some money up for a tournament and to promote my card that's in the game. Who knows what could happen, but I kind of feel like the game is going to get huge, and when you're a big part of the game like I am, when you're such a big holder, it almost becomes like it's going to be fine, right? It's not like the game's going to do really, really well, and I personally will miss the boat. I'm there, I'm on, my ticket's booked. It's a first class ticket. I'm sitting there, I'm looking out the window, I'm just waiting for the plane to take off. I kind of don't need to secure passage anymore. I think it would be very different if I was just discovering the game and madly sort of reaching down between the couch cushions to try and, scrape together a few more dollars to throw in fiat terms to throw in and get I just need to buy a few more packs, and I just need to, if I can just get one more land plot, and that hunger, which is fantastic because that gets you there, right? That's definitely necessary. But I'm at the tail end where any fiat that I move in would be, to be kind of almost pointless to, scratch and just save $20 a week off the groceries. And we've been really careful this week, so I can go and buy 2 rebellion packs. That sort of mentality is kind of, my fiat life is just standard blue collar, and so I couldn't really throw enough at the game to make a big difference to my underlying size of stake in the game. So I'm kind of very relaxed in that I'm here. I'm part of it. Where we go from here is the game will either succeed, in which case I'm definitely set for life, or it doesn't, in which case, we've had a good time and we had a good crack at it.
That's awesome. So yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the, we've seen some of the white papers that have come out now. We just got number 3 for phase 2 of land. I don't know if we want to walk through each one, or if you want to give us your thoughts on the different resources, the different buildings, and some of the requirements that you'll be facing as such a large landholder.
Yeah, cheers. I've sort of read it 3 or 4 times in the hour between when it dropped and when we started recording, and I've been over the other 2 several times. We just earlier tonight recorded another 101 with the second time we had Flowey on, and he's really gone right deep into it. He's been running reports on who's got how much PP and SPS and research points in each territory. He's really on fire and running spreadsheets and the like. So it's been great to have him on. But we went through 1 and 2 quite a lot, so we're well familiar with it. But the third, just dropped, and I think the big surprises for me, and I don't know why, but I was expecting that resource production and refinement would have requirements for worker cards. I wasn't expecting that silos, resource storage facilities would require workers. So it's not good or bad. It's just sort of understanding the direction that the game's going. The other thing I noticed from and I'm assuming that listeners have gone through the post, but the other thing that jumped out at me was that the refinement and the storage buildings don't care about the land rarity. So I kind of like that they're giving some value to those common natural plots that they're just kind of baseline, and I think the cheapest is 35. Yesterday I looked, the cheapest land plot was 35. So I think if we can say, well, those common natural plots can have refining buildings on them, or storage buildings on them, that kind of gives them a bit more of a use case, and there's no lost opportunity there because they don't care what plot they're on. So there was that, and there was also the 2 that jumped out at me, and then the third that sort of caught my attention was the fact that if you don't pay your maintenance for your buildings, which will be based on how thoroughly they were used, which I thought was interesting. So someone takes a bit of a break from the game for 3 months, they're not going to come back to necessarily a completely devastated land plot. They hopefully come back to not too much damage, but the idea that it loses a level when the minimum maintenance aren't met, I think that's a really interesting. It's putting some consequence on the player, which I think is good. It was a little unexpected, but you have to have a penalty for not maintaining the buildings, I suppose. But it also kind of means that anyone who's watching that can look at the general level of the buildings that they're competing against. And if we get a few people that lose their keys or die, or all sorts of things can happen in crypto, and those buildings slowly deteriorate, well, then there's a certain I guess not satisfaction, but safety in knowing that, okay, I now have the only level 8 ore refinery in my territory, or in this region, or even in this tract, because the others have fallen into disrepair. So I can sort of see the thinking and the rationale behind it all, but there were a few just little surprises in that, where the storage buildings need workers, and hopefully then I'm sure the supplying liquidity will be sufficiently lucrative to justify locking up those plots and those cards and that DEC and the grain to feed them, or the whatever food is applied to feeding them. I almost feel like to make that not be such a penalty, maybe if neutral cards got some sort of a productivity boost when dealing with silos, something along those lines, just so there's a little sweetener there, some way to optimize it without just being, okay, just continue to throw resources at this thing and hope that the liquidity rewards the elixirs that you get for supplying that liquidity. Hope that they're sufficient. I don't know. I'm just talking off the top of my head now. But yeah, so it was the silos needing workers. It was the rarity of the plots not being a factor when it comes to refining and storage. It's really just resource production. They were the I guess the take home sort of surprises for me in part 3.
Yeah, I was a little, I guess maybe I wasn't surprised by seeing that there was going to be sort of a maintenance cost. But it looks like the maintenance cost is going to have to be paid in both DEC and vouchers, because I believe the paper said that's what it costs to upgrade, and the maintenance cost will be a percentage of sort of what the upgrade cost is. I think there's been a lot of sentiment that it's sort of every time we turn around, we have to spend more to have land. How do you feel about that, owning so much land? And, do you think it's going to be what you're going to be able to get out of all the land you're working is going to be enough at the end of the day to sort of pay all these additional costs of staking DEC and not paying DEC and vouchers to maintain your buildings and upgrade them?
No, I hear you. And look, it's a very good question. I think, like any business, if there's special winged boots that give flying to a specific monster, and I'm making them, and the next guy's making them, we have the same sort of cost base. Well, there's going to be room for profit in there, no matter how much mucking around it takes to pull all that stuff together. I kind of see it as, yes, okay, it is a cost, but then it's a cost borne by my competitors as well. So when it comes to pricing these things, the market will take all of that into account. So I'm kind of not concerned. I think my size of my land holdings gives me options to pivot in different directions fairly readily. And I also feel like land surfing will likely become a thing. And when that happens, if I'm taking a chunk of all sorts of different resources at all sorts of different points in the supply chain, then personally I'm not too worried about running out of any particular one. My focus will be, I think, on establishing a baseline for each resource and then just letting it play out for 2 weeks, then coming back and saying, okay, what's been reduced from its baseline? Have I reduced my total holdings of this specific resource over this time? My Sparkstone is down, even if it's only slightly. Okay, that's something I need to focus on a little bit more. But I kind of plan to have enough of everything that I'm never running out of things, because I'll notice that I'm running at less than equilibrium a long time before that becomes anywhere close to zero. So then I'll know to dive on that. But with the building maintenance, I really feel like I can see peak monsters Baron's Toolbox, a whole lot of the aftermarket sites saying, "Hey, look, we're going to alert you if you're 2 days away from losing a hard-won level." Because also I noticed in this one building that's being upgraded, while it's being upgraded, it's producing nothing. So it's still costing you food to keep those workers going while they're upgrading, but you're not actually earning anything. So it'd be a real shame if that upgrade took 4 or 5 days, and then at the tail end of it, you forget 1 month to do pay your maintenance costs, and then you drop back down a level. That would be, I think, demoralizing and quite costly. So I can see a lot of people setting up alerts saying, okay, here's what's going to happen. 1 day before, we're going to notify you. 12 hours before, we're going to notify you. 10 minutes before, we're going to ring you on your telephone.
Yeah.
Get this done. I don't know whether the game will have some provision to say set aside this pile of wood and stone to automatically do maintenance as it's required, and then you just keep an eye on that pile of wood and stone, similar to how grain works at the moment. I don't need to worry about how much grain each of my individual plots is using. I just keep an eye on my total for the region, and then if that starts to slip down, I know I need to prioritize it more. So hopefully it's the same with maintenance for buildings, where as long as you're staying well ahead and you notice that that's not dropping down, then it's only if you go through and upgrade a whole heap of buildings and all at once and suddenly get a much higher maintenance bill than you're used to, that could catch you unawares. But otherwise, I think those third-party sites are going to be tapping us on the shoulder pretty hard to say, hey man, this needs attention.
Yeah, it feels like that's a no-brainer. I don't know how much actual, once you've actually set up the plots, I'll be curious to hear your take, Matt, managing so many plots, multiple regions, plus the plots for the Roaring 20s. I hardly ever harvest through the in-game interface. It's so much easier through Peak Monsters. So it feels, I can imagine Axler's already looking at, what does he need to do to set up notifications for these maintenance costs and that sort of thing. Have you found yourself going more to the likes of Peak Monsters for harvesting, or have you continued to do so through the games interface?
No, I've only ever done it through the games interface, and that's funny because I've lived on Peak Monsters for years, and I have so much time for Jarvie and Asgarth, and obviously for Axler Twinblade as well. I think so. This game has so many really talented people, really throwing hours of effort behind making these tools, and I absolutely applaud them all. I do spend a lot of time on Peak Monsters, but so far it's only been for research. Actually doing stuff in my mind mostly happens on the actual main Splinterlands site, apart from automating rentals and the like. But now that you've mentioned that and said that it's easier, my next harvest, which I'll do tomorrow, I suppose, will be I'll do that through Peak Monsters and explore that. And it's good to know what your options are.
Oh, you can harvest the whole full region with one click, man.
Nice.
It's easy. It's easy peasy. Yeah, it does it by resource. So you'll do grain with one click, research with one click, and splinter shards with a click. But easy peasy.
Yeah, it sounds good. So I mean, Peak Monsters really proved its value to me. A long time ago, I was looking to get the new card, Failed Summoner, which obviously to most people is one of the ancient cards, but it doesn't feel that long ago that we were getting those, and I was really quite taken with it. So I jumped onto Peak Monsters, and I thought I'll just compare the cost of the market's far more rational now, but back then it was just whatever people thought at the time, whatever they felt, and I don't think it would really permeated the player base's consciousness that gold foil really take far fewer to combine in order to max one out. And so I checked the price on Peak Monsters, and a regular foil to max it out was $23, and a gold foil to max it out was $9.
Wow!
So that was a pretty easy decision for me. But not just that, I was literally on the cusp of buying it for $23 on the Splinterlands site, assuming that gold foil would be more and wanting to save my pennies at the time. And the number of times I've used this gold foil failed summoner is obscene and to great effect. And to think like I got him for less than half the price I needed to, and I got him in gold foil because I went to Peak Monsters. So that's my personal little anecdote that I'm always open to exploring what Javi and Asgarth are doing over there, because they're good people and they do good work.
Yeah. Well, it'll certainly be interesting to see how this, all this 2.0 stuff comes to fruition. There is so much to take in here. I've as you and Hep were talking, I'm kind of scrolling in the background, and something that jumped out at me that you mentioned is the rarity of land plot not being taken into account as far as resource production goes. Do you think we'll see a swift market adjustment on common plots? I feel like that screams to me opportunity. Especially if you're a bigger landholder, if you can get a slew of common plots and not be affected by the rarity, it feels like that's a no-brainer to feed these bigger buildings on your more rare plots that are affected by, or buildings that are affected by land rarity.
Yeah, a lot of it's going to depend on capacity. So are you going to want 5 resource production is in the primary production plots that we have now, where the rarity matters? Are you going to want 5 for every refinery, or are you going to want 2 for every refinery? Like we don't know what the ratio is at the moment. So if you say we've got this much, if I've got 10 wood, what are they called? Lumber mill, sawmills. If I've got 10 wood producing plots, how many sawmills am I going to need to refine that? And so how many common plots am I going to need as a ratio against how many epic or legendary or rare wood producing plot buildings I have? And so that's how that ratio works, and then storage as well. How that works is going to have a big impact on whether these buildings, I mean, if 100 primary production plots can all be serviced by one refinery, then it's not going to put much of a floor under the common plot price. But if it's 3-to-1 or 2-to-1, then yeah, that's giving a lot more reason to hold a common plot that doesn't care about its rarity when it comes to the efficiency of refining or storing those resources there. So I actually posted it only a few hours ago under the second installment of the white paper. I had an idea and this was part of my thinking is putting some more value into those common plots. I was thinking we could gamify the map further by saying that somewhere where high value stuff, for example, gemstones, like the lapidary, where the gemstones are polished and prettied up to become their different tiers, different layers. I suggested on the post there that perhaps there could be some new additional building that can be built on a common plot that is like a guard tower. And if a lapidary is within a certain distance of a guard tower, then instead of having a 10% chance of the game, bandits, but it would be PvE, the game itself. Instead of there being a 10% chance of a robbery occurring and some of those gems being lost, there would only be a 5% chance. And if there were 2 of these guard huts within that prescribed distance, then that 10% chance would reduce to 0. So it would be a case of then we'd start ending up with just organically, we would have districts where people tend to go and build their lapidaries over here because, or somebody's built some guard huts over here, and as long as I'm somewhere within, that area where those guard huts are, they're gonna help reduce my chances of being burgled. So things like that would not just give the market dynamics more gamification, because you'd have people looking for plots, not just scrolling through the list of plots in the region and saying, well, I kind of want to be in this region and I'm looking for a swamp. Instead of that, they'd be actually looking at the map and saying, okay, there's a guard hut here and there's a plot over here that I could build a second guard hut, and then anything between them, I could build 3 or 4 lapidaries in there, and they wouldn't get robbed at all, because I know that there's these guard towers there, and so then the value of those plots suddenly jump, and the guy who owns a common plot and he's priced it fairly unreasonably suddenly sells it and he doesn't know why. Well, it's because somebody saw a strategic advantage in grabbing that specific plot positioned exactly where it is. I think there's a lot of scope for the game to move in that direction, whether that's now or a long way down the track, or I don't know. It could completely intersect and be incompatible with whatever Yabba's got planning down the road. But I kind of feel like the gamifying the actual map itself is fertile soil for people that really want to get into the nuts and bolts and look for those advantages, look for those opportunities to swoop in and grab a bargain, and then sort of actually develop their strategy and see how it turned out.
Ah, man, that sounds like a total blast, dude. I feel like Yabba is the one guy that we haven't heard be quite so vocal about what the potential for the PvE of Praetoria looks like. We've heard Nate kind of brain dump his vision for where these things could go. We've heard Cryptomancer talk about boss monsters and missions and guild collaboration towards achieving XYZ goals on through the PvE experience on Praetoria. I just wonder, so we know 3.0 is when items and spells come into fruition. I wonder how far down the track, if we do get this PvE stuff developed and into production, how far down the track is that, or is that kind of sprinkled throughout? Is it rolled out slowly as kind of coinciding with the more economic side of Praetoria, or I just wonder what do these guys have up their sleeves. I feel like if every little news drop, alpha drop that we get kind of leaves the community with a little bit more idea in terms of where this thing can go. And do you have any thoughts about that, Matt, or as far as timelines? Obviously I know you don't have inside scoop, but
no, I think you develop a bit of an instinct when you've been listening to the guys talking for so many years, and sort of I wouldn't ever presume that I can crawl into Yabba's head and know what's going on in there, because it's a beautiful place in there, but I'm not sure I could consider myself qualified to understand what's going on. But he's a very bright man. Over the years, Aggro specifically has mentioned transport being a big thing, moving resources from one place to another, and that there would potentially be some sort of a cost to that, maybe, or some risk of losing some stock. Maybe that could be that risk offset by sending a guard battalion or something along those lines. That's been talked about, and it's hard to know whether that's on the out now that Aggro is more focusing on the Genesis League ecosystem, or whether perhaps he was just telling us what Yabba was thinking. We don't know where the ideas have been coming from all these years. If it was Yabba's goal and dream to make transport a part of the game, and now he's in a position to make that happen, even more so than in the past, then that could be coming sooner rather than later. But again, we all have different ideas about what that might mean. Is it transport from one region to another? Is it transport within a region from one track to another, or is it transport from one territory to another? With the way he's done research, so that it's territory by territory competition. Maybe the transport would be from one territory to another. I really don't know, and how that would look. There's so many different ways that we can go with all this. I did notice there was a post. I didn't click into it. There was a lore post about a network of caverns and tunnels and caves underneath Praetoria, which I always thought was an interesting possibility for doing some mining stuff, where you can make it almost a 3D map, where you can dig down deeper and do big projects where you're doing archaeological projects and the like. And that's sort of hinted at with the digging up totem fragments. I mean, you can't just dig into virgin soil 3 or 4 meters and find a totem fragment from a lost civilization, without there being a lost civilization down there, right? Without there being ruins and things to discover and learn and the like. So I kind of feel that's a possibility. Sort of looking at Praetoria more as a 3D sort of set up, and that I don't want to say that would mean more land sales, but it could leave things open to, say, subdivision of plots, where you say, well, you can have a building, but you can also have an underground building on that same plot, right? So a bit more density perhaps might be a possibility, whether that's regardless of how that looks. But I think the transport stuff might be one of the directions that we go. And I know Nate's talked about player-owned arenas, which I think, or guild-owned arenas. I think that's really fertile soil, because I can see, back in the gladiator days, there was that. It was about the prestige of each, I guess, house, of each. I can't think of the name. I watched Spartacus Blood and Sand a lot, but I can't think of the name of the gladiator school. But it's essentially for a businessman to improve the prestige of his, I guess, almost brand name, was to have gladiators win, and then the common folk say, oh, this is name recognition and the like. It was almost like putting on an ad in the Super Bowl, where the gladiators are out there. Your name is attached to it. You're the one being seen to throw the prizes out onto the sand, gold coins and the like. And so it becomes a bit of a, once your basic needs are met, then it becomes about building that social prestige. And I kind of feel some of the bigger players, given the opportunity to build a massive stadium devoted to their honour, where people from all over come and compete for prizes and the like, that feels like a big ego trap, I guess, for people to say, yeah, I want to do that. I want to do the Matt Two Castles Clarke tournament, where the biggest prizes in the Broken Lands can be won, but only the bravest and strongest can, all of that vibe, I think, is tap into that, right? And we can really explode this game.
Yeah, interesting that you bring up density. One thing, reading through all these white papers, that I kind of think, I'm not, a big landholder. I have maybe 15 plots, 2 kind of scattered, and 13 in one area. But for someone who has so much land like you, I think, sound like you have a very good strategy, very methodical, can kind of see what you want to go for, and you have all this land to be flexible with the different buildings you need. But interesting to hear your perspective on, as someone who's, really been looking forward to land and really focused on land. What do you think about for smaller plot holders, people with 20 plots or less? Because there's just so much that you could possibly do. It's hard to know, like, what is even going to work, if there's, do you just have to kind of focus on one thing, or just kind of try to figure out how you can be a piece of the overall picture? What are your thoughts on that for people who maybe only hold like 1 or 2 plots even?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's funny, one of my co-hosts on the other show, Geotrix, has 15 plots. And he's sort of having those same sort of questions. And I think we were talking earlier about research points and how they're going to play into the game. And I think it's easy to have ideas about how it's going to work and just assume that your idea is how it will work and that we're all on the same page. And then something will come out and you'll say, well, actually, I was assuming a whole lot about where Yabba's head was about this. I actually got it completely wrong. And one of those areas I think we might be, the general public might be perhaps wrong, is I kind of feel, you said before that research points would be a way of gatekeeping manufacturing and progress with items and spells. And so I find myself wondering if perhaps, when you're playing a video game and you get to the next level and then you get a skill point, you have to spend that skill point on one of many options. And you can either choose to become sort of an everyman jack of all trades, or you can really focus heavily on one specific course. And So I find myself wondering if perhaps research points are going to be something where you're better off choosing a focus and saying, I'm going to be, I mean, my regions are full of wood, for example. So I might be best off spending all of my research points. You probably carry a total, to say, here's the total amount of research points that you've ever generated, and that will matter. But also for 50,000 research points, you get to be this much better at harvesting wood. You can unlock this particular type of axe or this particular new technology with your research. You can focus on those research points on this, and now you can specialize. And I feel like that would be a good way to give the punters with only a handful of plots a way to get good at one specific thing, and then rather than feeling like they're only a very small part of the overall supply chain, then they're not just a grunt, a small cog in the machine, but they're an artisan, they're a specialist who's working to improve that specific direction, so that they can then maximize their land's ability to really produce. And then there's the incentive. If you've spent a whole lot of research points on becoming a really good lumberjack player, with maybe even expanding out into storage, then when a suitable plot comes up for sale in your region, you're more likely to get benefit out of that. You're likely to bid up higher than the next guy, because you've got your research upgrade applies to any plot that you own, any plot that your account owns. So it's more valuable to you than it is to the other guy. And so you're going to bid that much higher because it's going to really be lucrative for you. And then, a year down the track, you've actually got 5 or 6 of these plots, and you are just hammering out the wood. And then you start to think, well, actually, I've got a lot of wood storage going on here, and I'm starting to make some elixirs. Maybe I'll spend some research points on becoming better at generating or using these elixirs, right? So you choosing where to spend your research points might become a sort of a specialty, where you elect a specialty. Same as if you wanted to be you play Skyrim and you say, oh, I want to put skill points into two-handed weapons or any other game like that. Pure speculation on my part, but I could see that being a good, fun way to go. And I found it was really funny while I was, and I still am, I bought a flesh column not that long ago, but while I was really heavily stacking those alpha flesh columns back when they were 3 cents each, or 3 for 1 cent in the very early days, I remember thinking it's interesting the way a particular asset can be worth more to one person than it is to another. Because if you and I are going up against each other to bid for a flesh column, for you, you're just getting a flesh column. But for me, I'm getting a flesh column. I'm also taking one off the market, right? Which means I'm increasing my total percentage share of them. And I'm also pushing up the price, which makes all of my existing flesh columns, at least on paper, more valuable. So I got 3 reasons to buy that flesh column, and you only have 1. So it kind of means that I will outbid you because I've got more reason to buy it. So I mean, it's getting a bit more into economics there, and that was my rationale. Maybe that was just me. It was just me making excuses for myself while this monkey brain just clicked the buy button. Ooh, flesh column. Maybe that was it. But I really enjoyed the fact that I was buying for percentage, and so if somebody's buying just to have one and I'm buying for percentage, then I get the benefit that, okay, more of the total supply has come to me and less of the total supply is now available for sale. So that seemed like a double benefit to me, because I was freezing other people out of having one, whereas nobody else has ever bought a flesh column and said, I'll buy this flesh column and then there'll be fewer for other people. Like that's not your thinking when you just want one to have it, right? You don't go down to the Peugeot dealership and go, okay, I'm going to buy one of these Peugeots, and then nobody else can get one, or fewer people will be. It just doesn't work that way. But if you're trying to corner the market in something, it does. So I feel like if Yabba went down this road with research points and gave us the made them something that you need to spend, earn them, spend them, to unlock different technology, I guess, trees or paths, then that would be a really good way to make sure that that swamp plot over there that's got lots of trees in it is going to be more valuable to that guy who's previously chosen to spend his research points there than they are going to be to the guy who's all about mining and he's doing his research in metallurgy and refining ores, and he's not really going to be interested in that forest or that swamp plot because he's specializing somewhere else. So that's what I'm thinking. Guys with smaller plots, smaller number of plots, if they've got the chance to specialize, then great. If they've got the chance to slowly over time get good at what they're doing and make plans for the future or bring in some outside fiat, then they can always say, I'm going to buy up and down my supply chain. I'm going to buy out the people that are selling me raw resources, or I'm going to go the opposite direction and buy out the guy I'm selling to. Either way, they'd be valid strategies. But I think the next couple of years is going to be very much about people buying and selling plots and positioning themselves for the longer term.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch how it pans out. So, right now we've already seen, when a region or, chunks of a territory are acting cohesively, the mythic landowners, the folks that are managing the keeps and castles are benefiting tremendously. And shout out to, I'm going to butcher his name. I'm not going to say it, but he's the keep owner of Kithden 102. He's already offered a DEC kickback for folks that are operating land with an excess of 50K PP. And I think it's a cool way to bring, the community together behind that. And it feels like what's happening with 2.0 with, all these things that you're talking about to benefit the smaller landholders and the landholders of, the natural commons. It feels like, the tables are going to turn a little bit where everybody's could potentially need these smaller, under 20 plot holders to participate in a way of, maybe offering the local storage. Maybe that's going to be the best use of something like these natural plots and for these less than 20 plot holders. So it feels like, the balance right now is a little bit offset, and the keeps and castles are benefiting tremendously from that cohesive unit of a community. But longer term, it feels like the scales of balance are going to level out for those smaller guys.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And as the game matures and develops and changes, different people are going to have different levels of, I guess, leverage. And different ways of capitalizing on that too, or different ways of capitalizing on different opportunities.
Yeah, so you mentioned that you recently went back to the market for flesh golems. Is that do you just give kind of a casual peruse every couple of weeks and see what's out there to bolster your monopoly on the market there, Matt?
I do. Generally, my sales come from people tapping me on the shoulder in DMs and saying, "Hey, Matt, I want to free up some money. So I've got a big gold foil one that I'm offering at a discount, and I'll sort of take it or leave it. There aren't many buyers of them out there, so I don't have a lot of competition. So yeah, the last couple of sales have been off the market, just dealing one-on-one with people that I know and trust and who've tapped me on the shoulder and said, here's a deal, here's an offer. And like I say, I enjoy buying them still. There's something authentic about it. I think there's a look, long term, you couldn't buy the kind of marketing that doing this has bought me, if you know what I mean. Like, what would that marketing campaign look like? Naming rights, basically, to a specific card. Like, if every time somebody looked at the Crustacean King, they thought of you, what's that worth? When and even years from now, when somebody buys an alpha pack, some streamer buys an alpha pack and opens a flesh golem, and they know enough about the ecosystem to mention me by name, that you really can't buy that kind of branding.
Do you have a I think I told you not too long ago in the 101 Discord that I went out and got my first alpha purchase ever. I got a level 3 flesh golem for my silver account. Obviously not being a part of the Alpha Beta Untamed releases, but looking back at those cards, the nostalgia that is applied to the Alpha cards, the aesthetic that's applied to the Alpha cards, man, they are sweet looking cards. I wish that, not to say that I don't like the Rebellion look, but the old school look that is there on the Alpha cards, I think is such a cool, I guess, relic from where we've came.
I mean, it's a relic from before Splinterlands, before even Steam Monsters.
That's a good call.
Aggroed had a different game in mind years ago, and paid an artist to draw him up some monsters, and that art never ended up getting used. So he had it on a shelf. So years later, when he said, "Hey, Yabba, let's get together and make this game," I've got some art from a project I was going to do previously, and so that's where the Alpha art came from. And when they decided to do beta, which Yabba's since said that it was a mistake to sort of reissue the Alpha cards as beta variants, but you live and learn. So at the time, they didn't even have really the bankroll or didn't need, I guess, the bankroll to buy. To pay an artist to do the art, because they already had art that Aggroed owned. So those pictures have been around even longer than the game's been thought of.
So one last thought on the flesh golems. Do you have a pretty accurate picture of how many are out there and how many are in MattClarke's stables?
Yeah, so it's over a third for regular and gold foil. So I stopped counting at a third. It wouldn't be far past a third. It'd be like 34, 35%, something like that. Yeah, so I think out of 51,000, it was 18, 19,000 I ended up with in regular foil.
You definitely cornered the market there, MattClarke.
Yeah, it was like I ended up with, I think, 50, or maybe almost 50 regular foil at max, and I think 11 or 12 max gold foil. But when you're combining 379 into one, 20,000 doesn't actually last that long.
Yeah. Was that cornered market conducive to a nickname before Matt Two Castles Clarke?
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone specifically gave me a nickname. There was always that connection made with different streamers and commentators, but there was never an actual nickname. It's funny, just the people who've said, "Oh, Flesh Golem's such a great card. How did you know?" And I picked one that looked like he'd be angry enough to make a good army, but also docile enough to take orders. So that was sort of that was the extent of my reasoning behind it. And people say, "Oh, you were so clever to pick this one card that turned out to be great." But I started stacking him, and he's the only card I've really tried to corner. But if his stats turned out to be terrible, I would have just sold them all and started stacking something else. So it's easy, years after the fact to say, "Oh, Matt had this great flash of brilliance and it all panned out really well for him." But over, in the moment, it's just like, "Oh, I'm just going to have a bit of fun with it and see where it goes." If you'd have told me 5 years ago that I'd be sitting on this massive stack of just this one card and be known worldwide for it, I don't know. I always enjoyed the stories of the robber barons and the guys who, "I'm going to corner copper," and they'd always lose their shirt because people just use something other than copper, or they import copper from overseas, or they go and do more exploring. And yeah, you bought the 3 copper mines, but we've just opened 2 more. So many guys have lost their shirt trying to do what I'm doing, and so I thought, let's just try and do that and just see how it turns out. So far, it's been great.
Nice.
So you talked for a long time, Matt, about lands once it's out and in its full glory, the playing days were going to be firmly and if I'm not putting words in your mouth, permanently put behind you. Have you stuck to that? Have you continued to play at all?
I've not stuck to that at all. It's after all this time, it's just such a part of my day to just sit down. I can't see that I can't see 50 out of 50, right? You know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
The energy sitting there. And I see 50 out of 50 and the empty bar at 0. And I think I'm just gonna the first chest is just for the guild, right? To get the scroll. Right. I've got to look after my guild mates. And then I'm here and I've made a cup of coffee and I may as well have a few more matches, right? I've only got another couple of wins and I'll get to Diamond 1, or, only a few more wins and then I'll get that third chest. And then before you know it, it's been half an hour and I've got 8 or 9 chests. And it's just so easy to fall back into that pattern, that habit. And I'm having to be a bit more creative because I was a little bit cavalier when I first started assigning cards to plots. And I just kind of pick the best card, even if it's something that I really rely on and use regularly. So I've had to sort of make up for some of those gaps in the lineup, but I'm doing okay and I'm still having fun. And if I burn my energy, I'd rather burn my energy on losing than just see it sitting there at max, not sort of doing anything. And it's great too when I open the chests and I get some of those rewards cards and I think, well, I can get him to the next level now. And as my actual owned cards move over onto the land, as I slowly accumulate and stake the deck that I need, then all of these chests are making me a more viable competitor down the track when I'm just playing mostly with soulbound cards. And maybe Chaos Legion. It'll be a long time before all my Chaos Legion cards will need to go on land because I have so many older cards with higher PP. So I think I'll do okay. I tried in Modern for a little while, and I guess ultimately I'm going to have to end up there because most of my older cards will be on land. But I got really just caned in Bronze over and over again. And a few people warned me that would be the case. There's vicious competition in Bronze.
Oh man, well I gotta say I'm ecstatic to hear that your retirement was all talk about. You're still alive and well playing the game. What's the total battle count at now? I think last update I heard you had hit 40K or 30K.
Yeah, no, I'm well past 40K now. Look, I think part of my retirement was taking the pressure off myself. Like I said about not wanting to overload myself and burn out. So when I look at all the managing land on behalf of the guild and all of that, I just really didn't want to put that pressure on myself to continue battling and brawling and tournaments and running all that land. So I got into my own head that I didn't need to continue battling. But when that's gone and when you don't feel like that's an expectation you have of yourself, you can just relax and say, I'm going to do it just because I feel like it rather than because it's something I expect of myself and I'll be disappointed in myself if I don't do it. 41,427. And
Nice.
Total wins 20,564. So I've definitely won less than half of my battles. I'm going to blame red wine for that. But it's about having fun, right? And look, when you're a big name and you got a target on your back, probably less so now when there's more players around that maybe aren't familiar with Discord and the bigger player base and shows like this, podcasts like this. I think back in the not the crazy early days, but back a couple of years ago, I'd see some guy beat me, and often I'd think, I wonder if he knows like that I'm that guy, and got a tickle out of that, right? I always felt like even if I lost, it was okay because it was kind of good for the game that this guy's getting this sort of like a little, oh man, you see this guy, he's got 2 castles and I just took him down with my, or I play a really expensive old card, Archmage Arius or something like that. That's, they go and check the price and it's 20 grand and they're like, wow, this guy just, he put up a team worth $43,000 when you add up all the value, all the market value of all these cards. And my deck is the cards I beat him with are worth $120 and I beat him, and wow, that's really cool. And there's been many a time when I've thought, yeah, okay, it sucks that I lost, but it's great for the game that you can have a big name get taken down by an upstart new kid. It's the plot of so many movies, right? Every story needs a villain.
It's awesome to hear that you happily embrace that perspective, Matt. And it sounds like that thought must cross your mind about 52% of the time. It sounds like something like that.
Let's just say if I'd have done the maths a bit quicker, I probably wouldn't have read out that second stat.
Oh, that's awesome, man. So the modern stuff, this kind of serves as a good segue into the newest stuff on the block, which is Rebellion and Untamed, shift into Wild. And I think a lot of we've heard guys like Gank, who's been around forever, and Infidel, who's been around forever, and a lot of these OG guys are starting to dabble a little bit in modern. And it's just testament to the game, number one, that after all these years, these guys continue to come back and still have fun. And guys like yourself just can't peel away from the fun factor that exists within the game. Is there any part of you that wants to kind of compete at a higher level in modern, or are you completely content just using whatever leftovers you got after Lands and sticking around in Wild? And what's your kind of, have you thought that far ahead?
No, I do like the idea of not coming up against Yod and Zaku and Kitty. So if I have to escape to modern to escape them, that might be a thing. I feel like over the years their dominance has kind of slipped as other new summoners have come along, and so they haven't been used over and over again, which is a big part of the battle. So somebody who thinks that you might have a counter won't just necessarily use it every single time. I think if it kind of depends. I've been shifted around a lot on bots from the start, because from the start, both of the devs said, look, bots is a losing battle. We can't win it. And we don't want to start that fight. And so I've sort of gone along with that. But I think banning them in modern just seems like such a success. And whether that's just because morale is better, because people know they're taking on human players or what, I feel like if they were to ban bots in Wild as well, that would probably be the thing that kept me in Wild indefinitely. If I was to go to modern, it would be more to pursue human to human battles rather than necessarily to escape any specific card or just to stick with the old classics that I know. I just keep reaching for them even now, and it's amazing how one little hole in your deck, because you put that card on land and I'll work around it, but so many times it's exactly the one that you wanted. So I feel like modern is calling my name, and I'm probably going to move across there eventually, but for the time being, the gaps in my deck aren't big enough. I do have enough of the older cards that a bot is not expecting me to have them. And so I kind of feel like in a way it's an advantage, because a lot of the bots assume they're going to come up against another bot, which is mostly going to have the newer cards. So they're not expecting some of those older cards. And so sometimes you can sort of rack up some wins like that unexpectedly. So I don't know. I'm really torn. The only thing I'm sure I want to continue on with is land. Everything else is just kind of up in the air and how I feel day to day.
Have you had a chance to, I'm sure you've seen all the, kind of peaked articles around the full Rebellion set, and maybe you've caught a glimpse of some gameplay stuff. Have you had a chance to personally play with any of the cards, or?
Well, interestingly enough, my 8-year-old Evelyn hasn't shown much interest in Splinterlands over the last couple of years, but just the last 3 or 4 days, she's just, whether she's seen me playing it enough that she said, oh, okay, I'm just going to spend some time with Dad. Either way, I don't mind if she wants to sit on my lap and play. So we pulled up her account, and of course her soulbound, what would you call the ghost cards, the ones that just come with the account, they're all the Rebellion ones now. And so she's been playing with those, just beating her way out of novice and into bronze. And so I've been helping her, and I am so taken with that summoner tactics. I only bought one Rebellion pack myself just because I've been so focused on land. So and obviously, at least for the time being, they only have half the PP of Chaos Legion, which is like still retailing it. It was still selling for less than $1, not retailing, but selling on the second-hand market for less than $1. So it's a no-brainer to me to buy 5 Chaos Legion packs at double the PP than to buy one Rebellion pack. Especially considering I keep telling myself I'm going to retire from battling. So playing on her account and playing with these summoner tactics, it's so cool. There's a life summoner that gives self heal to any of your cards, and so she and I would pick that, and the cube doesn't normally have self heal at that level. It's like bronze level, but that's what she'll do, and she'll put the cube right towards the back, and then load up some cannon fodder up the front and let them all get killed. And then there's this self-healing cube that's sat there that's got really fat from the scavenge that it starts with, and often will outlast them. And she loves that strategy. And we've been having fun with, there's a weapons trainer.
Oh no, MattClarke, you are training the worst of the Splinterlands players.
Yeah, sounds like Ben loves
the cube. Oh man.
Yeah, teach them bad habits early. There's another one that actually gives magic damage, weapons trainer with magic damage, and so she's loved getting the cube to self heal and do magic damage and scavenge. It's like she's really enthused about the entire setup, and I really like. I'll hit battle, and then I think, okay, let's see how it plays out, and then the screen looks all different, and then I've got the choice of this additional choice of what do I want to do and what monsters do I want to apply it to. And I just keep thinking there's going to be a situation where you've got the chance to add +1 to melee, +1 to attack to melee, and you're going to have a slip spawn, and you're going to see that the main heavy hitter on the opposing team has 4 melee damage, and so you're just going to go, well, I'm just going to give him 1 more melee damage, so he triggers my force field and only hits me for 1 each round, right? Like there's, as far as I can tell, there's actually capacity to do that. And I think that's such a cheeky, fun direction for the game to go. So I'm very enthused about Rebellion, and I think that summoner tactics is a great way to lead into the idea of items and spells with that additional round of gameplay. So I'm very positive about the future of the game, even though my personal holdings of Rebellion are dismal.
Well, thanks, Evelyn, for reinvigorating Pops with the Rebellion cards. I hadn't even, Rebellion's been out for, gosh, I guess a little bit over a week now, and I'm still very much dabbling around with where's the meta at, what's the good strategy here, where's the fun factor coming from. It hasn't even crossed my mind the possibilities of how do these cards interact with wild, and oh my gosh,
it's gonna be in your nightmares now. Jangles is
the cube, the self-heal cube, tossing magic,
level 1 self-heal cube with weapons training. That is gonna be in your nightmares, right?
Oh yeah, we're gonna go for a long walk in the park after this one to get that out of my brain. But yeah, man, I'm with you, Matt. The tactics has been, the first card that I went out and got was the Dragon Summoner that's got the ambush and the lookout ability, and it just adds a completely new layer of strategy to the game, and it's been so much fun. And I had for a very long time I hadn't bought any of the newest Riftwatcher airdrops. I was very content with saying I was going to be sitting on the sidelines through Rebellion and kind of seeing how things pan out. Well, at this point, I've got a couple of max summoners. I've got a handful of max cards, and it's just completely bought me back in, twofold. I think the fun factor is back in full force. I can't wait for what's next with UX, and when we start to see some some updates to what does the gameplay look like for this new era. And I think Rebellion just serves as such a good springboard to take us there.
Totally agree. And I feel like 6 months from now, there's going to be a guy who's been playing for 3 months. And when you tell him that the game used to just be click these monsters, choose the order that you want them in, and then hit battle and watch it play out with no further interaction, he's going to be saying, why was that even interesting? Why would anyone even wanted to have played that game? Because we get so used to the way it is now, and then look back on the simplicity of the earlier times and think, wow, it's how did they even find that interesting?
Yeah. I mean, zooming out and especially what you call out there, new players that are coming in with the Rebellion era. Man, it's a completely different experience to when Hep and I came in. We came in tail end of 2021, beginnings of 2022, and obviously there was no Modern and Wild at that time. There was Untamed was still king of the castle and just cleaning up shop, and that continued to a certain degree throughout, until Untamed recently shifted out. But they were just cost prohibitive. There was no way to compete at that higher level without, you could rent, of course, but you were, pretty much at the mercy of the rental market. And if somebody called back their llama, just before you went into your brawl, you're kind of left with your hands tied behind your back and sitting on a peg leg. But now, like you called out earlier, Chaos Legion packs are still under $1. They dipped down to 60, 70 cents, something like that, not too long ago. And you can go out and buy fresh packs and compete in Modern, with a very cost-effective approach, which is something that the game has never seen. So I think, that with tokens starting to move and DEC flirting with peg consistently for, gosh, I guess the better part of the last 6 weeks at this point, land coming out. We've got all these whispers of 2.0. Man, it feels like if I were a new player coming in, I feel like there's just so much to sink your teeth into that's exciting and happening now with Splinterlands. And it's all kind of been coinciding with the bigger picture crypto market, Bitcoin moving. So it's a weird time that everything has kind of come together in this like 3-month span after such a dismal, 18 months. So yeah, it's an exciting time to think about new players coming in and what is that experience like?
Yeah, I totally agree. Absolutely. And you stole the words out of my mouth with Chaos Legion being this cheap. It seems like a pitfall, but we don't need many new players to arrive and decide that they want to compete and want to max out Chaos Legion decks before those packs start to really move up. And I kind of feel like this is like we sat through the cold winter and now it's springtime and there's flowers blooming and there's fruit and we don't have to choke back our stored whatever we managed to bundle up over the winter. Now there's actually there's green shoots there. It just feels very, very different than it's felt in a long time. And I think there are people in the crypto community looking for stable coins. And as much as we say, SPS is going up and that's going to get attention, DEC sticking to the dollar, that gets attention too. There are people looking for that and saying who's successfully managed to pull off a stable coin. And the longer that goes on, and the longer that stays, within a nice tight bound, the more people are going to say, "Hang on, the thing that Terra Luna couldn't do, these guys over here have done. All these other projects that have tried to do this thing, that have tried to pull a stable coin, these guys over here have actually done it. And now it's been 3 months, and now it's been 10 months." And so that attracts attention as well. So it's really, to my mind, it's just a question of when, not if.
We wanted to talk with you about friend of the podcast, Dave McCoy, had to put up on PD sort of a pre-proposal sort of proposal. It's compromise for unlocking soulbound cards. I don't know if did you get a chance to read over that? He put that up yesterday.
I did, yeah. He actually tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Do you mind giving some feedback on that?" And I gave it a look, and I said, "Yeah, I would go for that." And I commented on the post as well that I would go for that as a as a good compromise position. And I think he's right when he says that if we keep dragging our feet and don't go either way with this, then we kind of get the worst of both worlds. So sometimes you've got to say, look, this is a fair compromise. Everybody feels like they left something on the table, which is how you want these things to look. And if we can find a solution that everybody believes is suboptimal, but everyone understands is better than not making a decision, because not making a decision is making a decision, then that's the direction that you want to go. So I'm broadly in support of Dave's position. I would likely vote for it. I would definitely vote for it if Yabba voted for it. That's the big signal that I always look for. If Yabba's voting for something, that's I'm almost definitely going to vote for it as well, and vice versa. That's my big signal that I look for. But I basically what I read, I liked. I think it is a good compromise. So yeah, I'd go for that. We have had a flurry of proposals recently, and I tend to, with a lot of family stuff going on and other things to focus on and the like, I tend to really just drill deep down into proposals if they're close enough that my vote would sway them. I'm normally like a 1% vote, a 1% move up or down. And I know a lot of people really get into it, but if I see that a proposal's sitting at 80%, well, there's not much point in me voting for it, whether I like it or not. Likewise, if it's sitting at 40%, there's not much point either way. So it's only those ones that are getting close to the end and are pretty tight that's when I'll sort of dig a bit deeper and have a look. So I wish Dave well. I adore him as a person. He's a fantastic dude, and has been someone that I've known and dealt with very happily and successfully over the years. Wish him well. Hope it all goes well, and I hope it makes it to the main proposal stage, and then we can, I guess, debate it some more and see how it all lands.
Yeah, so from what you said earlier, it seems like you probably don't have, like maxed out sets of these Soulbound rewards cards, right? You're still trying to get some of those.
Yeah, well, because I don't bot, they play in wild and don't bot. I've had people tell me, oh, you don't have maxed out. I've had mine maxed out months ago. I only log in once a week just to claim them all and combine, and then I go back about my day. So there's an element of envy there where I think, oh, I've only I'd have done the wrong thing and done the botting rather than playing manually. But I kind of feel, well, again, like I said, if the game goes great, if the game really picks up some steam from here, I win regardless. So not having quite maxed out Soulbound cards, it's not a deal breaker for me. So, and if I do manage to max a few out while they're still available, then I'll just enjoy them more, because I got them with blood, sweat, and tears rather than just automating it all away. So yeah, no, I think I'm getting close. My closest one is a common. I think I need another 30 or 40 to go. So he's at like level 9.5. I don't think of who it is now, but there's a lot of legendaries that I have one BCX of, and I'm never going to max them. I got terrible luck with opening those chests.
Yeah, me too. But so would you have interest in then, purchasing these cards if they were available to be unlocked and purchased on the market?
Yeah, I definitely would, as long as there wasn't a massive sort of markup. And I kind of feel like maybe there would be, because they're a lot harder to acquire, right? You can't just get them from backs. Historically, they would, especially in the early days, people would buy a whole heap of packs and they'd open them all hoping to get legendaries, and then they just sell the legendaries into the hype cycle for enough to buy a heap more packs, and then they just go and dump the commons and the rares, which is why I got a whole heap of my flash columns so cheap so early on. And so there's always been that kind of sentiment, whereas with the rewards cards, the Soulbound rewards cards, they had to be won, right? They had to be opened in chests. So you're not going to have somebody out there who has 20 maxed out rewards cards unless they've had a whole lot of feeder accounts, I guess, bot feeder accounts. But I don't think there's going to be that massive oversupply, particularly if it's really, really expensive to to unlock them. With this proposal. So I know half of it can be covered in vouchers and the like, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see what the prices look like. I'm definitely not opposed to buying what I need to max them out, because some of them I've really been looking forward to playing them at max. I look at the card and I think, oh man, that'd be so cool if it was maxed out. And if it was a regular card, I would have months ago bought the few BCX that I need to get them there. The Coastal Sentry, man, I got Coastal Sentry hand over fist in gold foil very early on. Like the first week, I would have opened so many and got her to level 8. She's a common, I think. She's level 8.
Yeah.
And then that was it. Then it just stopped. Whatever I was doing, I stopped doing. And so I had her at this high level straight off, and she just dominated for so long. But now I just keep thinking, my kingdom for just a few more to max her out at gold, and the regular's almost caught up now. So it's a different vibe, it's a different feeling, and I kind of feel like the way the soulbound summoners can summon gladiators really sort of doubles down on that whole vibe of, well, I'll just keep playing, but I'll use my soulbound cards, because that now includes the gladiators, which I'm doing okay. I've been in enough brawls now that even though again, I got similar sort of luck, I still feel like my gladiators are good enough that they can win me some matches in Diamond. So that's another, I guess, consideration, because if you can get that Bloodlust firing up, and you get Katril Gobson there doing that double strike on the back row, and they're not expecting it, they just lined up chickens and those 0 mana cards at the back end, the fiends and chickens, and just feeding that Katril with Gobson's Bloodlust, that gets fun real quick.
Yeah, I'd say I was recently trying to grind myself back out of silver, and I found that those using those soulbound summoners, I have most of them at like level 6 now, so at gold level, but I don't really use them too much when I play in gold, and I feel like, my gladiator cards are probably at a silver level. Maybe I have a couple at gold, but most of them are sort of at that silver level. And the additional abilities you have in gold can sort of overpower that bloodlust or render it not as effective. But in silver, where they're basically, I had them at max level, and could just play them as a regular part of the deck. And where silver, where you don't have as many abilities, having that bloodlust, the Katril Gobson, Cora, lots of Cora plays there, especially if there's like a poison match, and you could just throw martyrs around Cora and have her be immune and self-heal and just let her run rampant. It helped a lot. We found that to be a very effective strategy. So they're definitely interesting. It's fun to play the different combinations that you can play with those soulbound cards and those soulbound summoners that maybe you don't always think about because your gladiator cards aren't up to the proper level, but it does make it interesting.
So how we're talking about the cube being a sore point.
Just for Jangles, I love my cube. I have a cube. I love my cube. So it's just Jangles hates it. He refuses to use it. Get one.
So Cora's the sore point for me. She is far and away my least often pulled epic gladiator, and I have her at level 2 without immunity.
Ooh.
Every time I have a Noxious Fumes match, I think, oh, how I wish my Quora was anywhere else. All the other epics are at level 3, well on their way to level 4 often. Quora's still sitting there at level 2. I cannot pull a Quora. It's got to the point now where I wave over the card and I see it's purple and I know it's going to be Gorth. I just like and I click it and it's Gorth. It's a sick joke the game's playing with me, and I don't know when it's going to end, but so here we are. So when you say immunity on Quora, no, I don't have that, but I look forward to the day.
Yeah, that Quora Llama play is just silly. Like the Flesh Golem Llama play is great. The Quora Llama play is just absurd. That's yeah. Well, Matt, maybe you'll find some solace in this. I couldn't pull a Quora for I probably went 4, 5, 6 months without pulling one, and then I had a stretch of probably 5 or 6 packs where I pulled, I think, 4 Quora in a row, and got her over the hump to I think I've got 3 or 4 BCX at level 4 now. So when it rains, it pours, man. It's got to be coming around the bend at some point for you. You can't get Gorth forever, bro.
None of them I have, and I can have. I'm looking at. Look at that. I can get him to level 4 now. I can literally. I'm just going to upgrade him now while we're here. Yep, level 4 Gorth, and Cora's still on 2.
Do you ever play Gorth?
No. Maybe that's the key. Maybe I need to find a way to just cram him into a lineup and make that happen. And that's the key.
I feel like Gorth is actually a decent card.
Now he's at level 4. He's got Enrage, so maybe I will use him. Yeah, okay.
Toss him with Yasik, and that's what 10 damage, piercing, enraged for 8 mana. He's not susceptible to giant killer.
Goodness knows the game wants me to play Gorth, that's for sure. So let's stop fighting it and just go with it, I guess. And maybe that's the path to Quora. Goodness knows, yelling and screaming at the screen isn't the path to getting the Quora. We've tried that, so let's try something different.
Yeah. Let's kind of reflect on the Soulbound era. We've just had our first batch. We're coming up quickly on the end of the first year of this Soulbound card set. I have to imagine that this first set is probably coming quickly to the end of its print run. We'll probably see our first batch of Rebellion reward cards. Do you guys feel like, in retrospect, the first batch of Soulbound was a success? I think we came out of the gate and there were some printing issues, and all of a sudden it looked like we were heading towards a place where, if and when cards became unlockable, we would have a complete relapse to the Pellicors and that era reward card where it was just flooded everywhere. But then they rectified things, and then I think things got even further rectified with SPS staking requirements coming into play. So it feels like things have balanced out. But I'm just curious, you guys, Matt, you've been around for a long time and have seen some really powerful reward cards over the years. I think Ruler of the Seas was a reward card. I know Almo was a reward card. I think Cube might have been a reward card.
Cube was reward. Goblin Mech, Sea Monster, Vampire. There's been a whole lot of those rewards cards. And what's really funny is when they ran out of print, you knew that was it. The supply was fixed, right? If they ran out on Tuesday, there weren't going to be more printed or found in a pack or down the side of a couch somewhere on Wednesday. So you knew. And I preferred to stack reward cards because they were so cheap. I mean, it's how are you going to lose money on a 1 cent card, right? Oh, it only went up to 3 cents. Well, hey, I've tripled my money. So much safer than buying a $10 card and hoping that it goes up to be a $30 card. So I stacked a whole heap of like Goblin Mechs and Sea Monsters and the like when they were really, really cheap. And the rationale was very simple. Is that when they're out of print, that's it, right? And so there's that FOMO. That the price isn't going to stay low forever. Whereas other stuff, a Chaos Legion card, well, how many more are in packs that haven't been opened yet? You never have that finite moment that, okay, that's it now. That's what's been made is made, and there'll never be any more of the supply. I don't know how many Alpha Flash columns there'll ever be because there are so many unopened Alpha packs out there. Not a huge amount, but you can still never say, okay, I definitely have a third of the supply forever. If somebody opens a whole heap of packs and they get really lucky on the draw and they get a whole lot of Alpha Flash columns, then maybe I could potentially slip under that 1/3 mark. I can never say I definitely have that. So that's been I think a real quality aspect of the reward cards up until the most recent ones now with Soulbound. There's a bit more I guess up in the air with where we're going to go with it all. The previous reward cards, they could still be bought and sold, and people were still sitting on them and hoarding them and waiting to sell them later on. So the price could still fluctuate. But the Soulbound rewards, I think these ones have been really, really good. I think they've been strong enough to be worth winning, which is a big part of the battle, but also not so overpowering that new players who come in, buy a few packs and get weigh in and give it a shot, that they're not going to be disheartened or disillusioned. So, there's this card that keeps beating me, and I can't even buy it off the market, and I can't even buy it in packs. I just need to keep losing until I somehow win enough chests to find it in the chests. That can be demoralizing. So I didn't feel like this soulbound rewards cards were too overpowered, but I also felt that they were definitely worth winning. So I would definitely call this a win.
Yeah, I think they've been great. It's definitely been. It's interesting. I think I've said on here before where you can lose a match to someone and it's like, wow, you just had lucky. You got lucky you're opening chests, having that card, like you can't play that card. So that's frustrating, but I think it also keeps the game, a little more interesting.
Yeah. I wonder if coming towards the end of the print run, we've had, I've heard this argument come up, throughout the kind of issuance of this soulbound card set, where if I've got a max Kulu Mastermind and a max Iziar, and I've got sitting on one BCX of the Drybone Raider, for example, I can turn off particular cards from being potential pulls as part of a chest. I think there's some interesting ways that I think the team can kind of iterate on this soulbound reward capture process and in subsequent releases. It'll be fascinating to see how we go about doing it, and I'd be curious to hear what is Matt's take on the soulbound cards. It wouldn't surprise me if like Hep, you called out the soulbound summoners being potentially OP and just dominant in the lower leagues. I wonder if Matt kind of feels like putting the gladiator summoners as part of that set was a success, or if it actually just destroys the meta at the lower leagues, because we've all shared the pain of modern bronze and silver, and we said it last week, Hep, and I think I've heard you say the same, Matt. I feel like the bronze and silver modern league is by far the most challenging place to play in this game, especially as you're trying to knock on the door to the league above. There's just so many good players that just, it's humiliating. It's so frustrating.
Yeah, I think that we need to make sure the game needs to make sure that it's always worth trying to get up into the next league. If you're dominating in Bronze 1, then you should be trying to scrape by in Silver 3. And SPS staking instead of CP, that's helped with that, I think. I've not spent enough time, I think, in the lower leagues to really be able to qualify or quantify what it's like coming up against those almost unbeatable card combinations. Even if you know they're coming, you can't sort of counter them. I expect that would be quite demoralizing and would have cost us a lot of new players. It's hard to get that balance right between giving people cards that they're going to be excited to win. The card that, oh wow, I can't believe what I just pulled. This is incredible. This is going to help me. It's going to be so powerful. You got to kind of balance that between that and not making that player a roadblock to other players then, because of that card that they have. So we need to incentivize those guys that are just absolutely ripping it up in bronze to, hey man, put your big boy pants on and drift up into silver and see, even if you're going to lose there a bit occasionally, whether we got to scrap leaderboard rewards or what the solution is, but we need to keep that movement going, that flow going, where people aspire to be more than just the best guy in bronze, and really want to go for moving up in it. And I'm not sure how we incentivize that. I think if there are cards that can't be Matt's always said that if there's a lineup and you predict it's coming and you still can't win, even though you know what it was, and if you're completely convinced and played your absolute best counter and it didn't work and it didn't matter and you were always going to lose, that's when it's hopelessly demoralizing. But if you're a smart upstart and you've got, a scrappy young lad with only a few cards to his name, but because you accurately predicted exactly what the other guy was going to do, you can pull off the win, then that's the kind of coming from behind comeback story that really puts bums in seats and gets excitement and the like. So it's a very dangerous game to play and a difficult line to walk. But I think so far we're doing okay. I've heard a lot of grumblings from people that just avoided getting into guilds and didn't want to brawl and didn't want to cooperate or compete with anybody else. They didn't want to be part of a team. They're just solo gamers, which I can appreciate. I generally play games solo. And for those people, they sort of thought, well, I just assumed that brawling was going to be a completely separate part of the game with gladiators over there, and I was never interested in that. And now all of a sudden, we've got these soulbound summoners that can bring gladiators into main gameplay, and now I find I'm massively behind for no reason, and I'm coming up against these cards that I can't compete with because I don't have them myself. I can appreciate why those people would feel sort of a little bit gypped or ripped off by the change of direction, because I know it was originally presented as, okay, well, gladiator cards are just going to be for or bloodlust is just going to be for brawls, and then before you know it, now we've got the summoners, and now we've got the rule set as well. So you can, in ranked play, you can come up against a team that contains 2 different gladiators because they've used a summoner and the rule set said gladiators are allowed. Now, if you're someone who's never played a single fray and never received a single merit, well, then you're going to be playing 0 gladiators against potentially 2. You're not going to have a good time. So I don't know what lessons have been drawn from this, gleaned from this. I can't see us unringing that bell. I don't see any way that we change things so that gladiators can't be in ranked anymore. I think it's just a change that once you've made it, you've got to commit to it and lump it and go through. Maybe it's good for the game that most people have to kind of be a member of a guild to really maximize their deck. I don't know. I guess we'll find out together.
Yeah, a couple things there. So you mentioned the humiliating play where I know what's coming. I know you're a big llama guy, Matt. I'm wondering how many times you've left folks on the other side throwing out the llama cube, and oh my god, I just hate that play. And there's no way to beat it. You know, we eventually got some counters that can defeat the llama cube before it just is sitting there with 30 health and healing itself for 10 at a time. And
it's funny because I kept hearing that Dallin wasn't that great a summoner, and yet he's the perfect counter to Llama Cube because the cleanse doesn't strip off the cripple, and so I had a great match the other day where I actually turned it off. When you one of those ones where you just say I skipped the results because I know I lost, and then you hang on, I won. That can't be right. Surely that's not right. So you go and rewatch them. They're the best ones because that's where you learn. But it was just my ant miners up against Bacteria. We had obviously other cards in the teams, and they'd fought down to the point where it was just the ant miners versus Bacteria, and of course Bacteria is healing himself. So I'm not gonna sit there and watch that for the next 15 rounds while I just wait for my ant miners to die of fatigue. But I forgot that even though they're only doing 2 damage, they were crippling each time. So they, before we even got to fatigue, they'd managed to get Bacteria down to 2 health and then finished him off. And so cripple, I think, is Dallin's sitting there with all his cripple abilities, and if you've got 3 or 4 cards that are all firing at the cube, it kind of doesn't matter if he's healing himself because he's healing himself up to a lower max health every single round. So yeah, cripple's the big one, and I'm kind of glad that cleanse doesn't remove cripple because then llama cube, llama cron, llama golem would be just completely OP. But if you're 100% certain that somebody's going to play llama cube, then there's no reason to just not absolutely fire off the cripples. Throw in some stuns as well for a bit of fun. It's not like the cube's going to dodge anything, right? It eats up everything that you throw at it. So bit of stun, bit of knockout, and some cripple, and you'll get there.
Yeah. All right. Well, man, it's a bright future ahead. I'm super stoked about Rebellion, Matt. I hope you take the plunge and at the very least rent a couple of cards. Matt, if you haven't seen it yet, I strongly encourage you to rent a Mantaroth to go with. I know you're a big Pasibilis guy. Toss Mantaroth in the reach position and have fun, man. Get some repair out there, toss some a protect from the what's his face, the Wavesmith, and have a blast, man. The armored strike is such a fun new ability into the game, and yeah.
Well, you're a big fan of Grimbardian Smith from the last podcast. I had to listen to that. You're saying he's the new Almo.
Yes.
So that might be another direction to look at. I remember, I'm just looking at my notes here. You're talking about Thispa and Riftwing with weapons training just getting completely out of hand.
I've been spamming that every chance I get, especially in Little League matches. It's phenomenal.
So there's and every time you get these changes, you sort of see I like to actually haven't done it for a while, but I like to keep some dry powder for before town halls, because there was always the possibility that Yabba would announce new rule sets. And I remember the rule set when Equalizer rule set was announced, and I jumped straight on the market while the town hall was playing. I can't remember who announced it or how it was rolled out, but it was so here's the new rule sets, and one of them was Equalizer. And so I just immediately jumped on the market and bought up a massive amount of vampires, because they were all one health. Vampires and enchanted defenders, because they were all one health. And I thought, well, the cards that have all these other things, but the downside to them is that they only have one health, well, they're going to do so much better in these Equalizer matches. So you I think part of the game is having enough dry powder and keeping your ear to the ground, so that when there is a change announced, where they say, oh, there's this new thing we're doing, you can think through the implications of that and then go to the market and capitalize on that, hopefully before anybody else. And so whenever there's something like that where you go, well, Cispa plus Riftwing, this is really got some legs with the new weapons training. It's not just buying Zerial, it's also looking at the other cards that are going to benefit from it. And maybe some of those cards were around back when not having an attack was a real disadvantage. But now that weapons training is out and it's recently been, buffed, now those cards like Cube getting a bit of magic damage, or like Riftwing, picking up some damage there, they're then those cards that are going to benefit from that. And that's part of the game. I think it's not just the game doesn't start when the timer starts counting down. The game is all the time. The game is running podcasts, coming on podcasts, talking about this stuff, getting your name and your face out there, if that's the angle you want to go. Maybe it's not. Maybe you want to be an anonymous player who's known for wheeling and dealing and buying and selling and being an honest punter in that avenue. So it's all about the way you want to play this game. But the game isn't just how the battle plays out, mercifully, because, as you said, 52% of the time it works every time. It's about how the broader ecosystem of how you play, right? How do you play the game, as in how do you play the community? How do you play the town halls? How do you play bringing value to this space? You look at Axler Twinblade, right? I wouldn't know that guy's name, but he made Baron's Toolbox, and now I know his name, and I think he's great. He comes on the podcast and we talk to him, and so that if the game pops down the road, he's going to be a name to watch out for, somebody that people know and respect, and because he's brought value to the game. Same as Kyokis with his Splinter stats that he's been doing for a while, and the report cards that he does, that you can go to his site and generate all this and pull up all this information. These are all people who are thinking, how can I add value to this game, which is part of the game itself.
Well, that's a great thought to start wrapping it up. And man, I got to tell you, I love, Splinterlands 101 is pretty much my go-to podcast. Selfishly, it would be the People's Guild, but I'm not going to be that self-serving and go back and listen to our own episodes. So it's 101. I always enjoy the banter, and you guys have had a slew of some great guests and great conversations of late. But I've had the thought that I know Boba Fett's fixing to move across the pond and Western Hemisphere in Mexico before too long. Is that going to spell the end for 101? Have you guys discussed what things will look like once he's on the other side of the world?
Yeah, so I asked him the other day, and thank you for your kind words, by the way. I really appreciate it. He does all of the hard work. I literally press the button at the time and then just talk about the game, and then stop when we stop, and that's my real input. So Bob is really the driving force behind that, and he, funnily enough, he's. I remember him saying, "Hey Matt, look, can we do a?" I didn't know him well when we first started. I'd sent him one of the coins, the original mint of the Steam branded silver coins, which has gone back a way if anybody knows. But the design was by Bear One, who I mentioned earlier, who lives in the Blue Mountains. She designed it, and the silver stacking community minted off these 1,500 coins. And Boba Fett actually reached out to me because I've got a reasonably large delivery and said, "Oh, are you selling any?" And I ended up selling him one and sending it to him. So that was the start of that friendship. And then he reached out to me and said, "Oh, Matt, you know what's going on with the game. Can we do like a 101, like a guide where we just go through each of the splinters and just explain to people what their strengths and weaknesses are?" And so I thought he meant like it's we'll go through the splinters and when we're done we'll be done. And so I in my mind I thought, well, I can do half an episode, but
Matt, I gotta say you're not very good at retirement, bro. you set that precedent a long time ago, man. I should have known.
So I went into it and just thinking, okay. And so we got to the last splinter, and then he's okay. So next week we're gonna have some guests on, and we're gonna do that. And it just kind of steamrolled, and I just kept showing up for it because I like those guys. They're really cool, and they're passionate about the game, and it's all good fun. And like I say, it's really no work for me. Bob's the one doing all the editing and piecing it all together. So no, we've discussed it. He's going to be in Perth next week, and he'll be doing the show from Perth. And then I don't know how long he's staying there, but he does plan to continue doing it from Mexico. So we'll see what goes on with the time difference and the like. But he works. His main job is doing teaching English as a second language to international students, and he does that online anyway. So he can do that anywhere. So he'll be basically making the same income, but he'll be living somewhere where he can happily live off a quarter of what he was spending to stay in Melbourne. So it's a bit of a no-brainer to move to Mexico. But hopefully, we can continue on. And it's been a great 102 episodes now, and we were happy to have Aggroed on. And that was his first, I think, big sort of public appearance since the reshuffle. So that was an episode in diplomacy, trying to word things diplomatically and make sure that nobody was being feeling like they were being hung out to dry or pilloried in their absence with no right of reply. So it was a good experience. It was fun, and I always enjoy talking to Aggie. But so it's been a great fun time running those. Doing the Splinterlands 101, and I'm happy to continue indefinitely. We'll see where we end up.
Awesome. Yeah, big fan. Well, Matt, dude, I got to tell you, I always appreciate you, taking it. I see you, back in the Splinterlands TV days a couple months ago, I'd see you popping in, and you were dubbed a nickname that should not be named. I heard, Bob poking some fun with that one. It didn't last very long. I'll say it, the Untamed Fairy. That was it was pretty hysterical. But you're always making time for the community, man. You're always willing to drop some advice and lend a helping hand to folks and delegate cards out. And it's guys like you that pave the road for guys like Hep and I to come in and feel so welcome. And I think it's our obligation to kind of continue paying it forward, man. So I always appreciate you doing that. It's always good to run into you and to these different content creators streams and chats and see your kind of fingerprints across Peak D. And you're a well-spoken dude. You articulate your thoughts really well. And I've always admired your ability to take a really complex topic and break it down for us dummies in a way that's It's very manageable and digestible. So yeah, from the People's Guild to you, man. Always appreciate having MattClarke around. It's an episode well overdue. We had you on, gosh, it's hard to believe that it's been 14, 15 months since the last time we hosted you here, but appreciate you taking the time and hopping on, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime. I always love talking about the game. And you're right. There are a lot of really, really great content creators that are just sort of rearing up and becoming a thing and reliably and responsibly just putting out that content. And it's such a buzz to be a part of this community. This is, you guys, you're my people, right? This is my tribe. This is where I belong. So it's not any great feat of generosity on my part to hang out with my tribe, because it's my tribe. It's where I belong. This is home for me.
Awesome. Well, Matt, if you get an itching to play any of these Rebellion cards, man, I'll definitely pay it forward. I'll send you some stuff. Let me know when you're itching to get that Mantaroth Possibilis play going. I'll send you over the new Almo. And actually, since I said the Almo comments around Grimbardoon Smith, I think he's actually better because of the void and because of the repair. I think he's going to change the meta. I think more so than Almo did.
Wow.
So yeah, just my 2 cents. And that's coming from a long time Almo believer. I was trying to get Hep to buy Almo for 18 months, and now the time has passed. But all right, gents, always appreciate you, MattClarke. Hep, any final words?
Nope, I think we've said it all.
Wonderful. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for tuning in, and hope you enjoyed the show. We will catch you in the next episode, and you have been listening to
The People's Guild.